Thank you, Mel. Thank you. Getting a dry mouth. That's okay. So just to let you know, right after my talk, we're going to do one more song, so don't leave early. The chapel checkers will give you negative chapel credit if you sneak out early. So I thought this would be a really catchy title. I always encourage my students to come up with catchy titles for their papers. I figured maybe it would draw in a few students who are short on chapel credit, or maybe drive them away. So I wanted partly to talk about different Bible translations. We all use different Bible translations when we're trying to get another perspective on a verse. And I've been doing that lately. I've been reading an Old English Bible translation. When I mean old 1,000 years old. So here we go with Genesis 1:1 in Old English. On Angun Yishop God Hirvon and Urathan. But here's a translation. In the beginning shaped God heaven and earth. Another verse. God Yishop man and se man was Yewort on libendra soula. God shaped man and the man was wrought into a living soul. I just love the sound of that. I love to wrap my tongue around it. And when reading that, I love the concrete way that God's described as doing his creation. He gets his hands dirty, he shapes things. You can just imagine God shaping a lump of clay into a human body. Okay, another passage. No more Old English, I'll spare you. The well-known passage from Psalm 139 about I, the human being created. I was woven together, I was intricately woven, I was skillfully wrought, I was knit together, I was sewed together, and then my favorite, I was curiously wrought. That's the King James Bible, slightly old-fashioned, but we get the idea. A lot of weaving going on, and if you think about weaving where the threads are going under and over and you're making this beautiful, complex kind of pattern, that's how creation is being described. You can tell I like the word curious, so I had to check out the word curious in the Oxford English Dictionary. One of the older meanings, characterized by special care, careful, minute, accurate. And then curiously wrought, made with care or art, skillfully, elaborately, or beautifully wrought. Obsolete. I think that's a real shame. I think we should bring it back. I encourage my students to bring back words, that have lost some of their power. One of my favorite, or not favorites, is awesome, as in, what an awesome slice of pizza. What a waste of a good word. It's a bit of a come down from our God as an awesome God. So does this mean pizza is being raised up to new heights? Or is our wonder of God's majesty being lowered? Hopefully neither of these is true. Hopefully. So anyway, it's pretty clear that we've been put together pretty carefully by God. And not just us, how about the rest of creation? So we know this verse, Psalm 8, when I consider your heavens, the work of your fingers, the moon and the stars which you've set in place. Again, God he's molding stuff. Now, I'm not suggesting God has literal fingers, but you get a very strong picture of God's creation and of its majesty. Okay, that's God's creativity. How about human creativity? Let's turn back to Genesis 4. We see some early indications that humans are starting to think about creativity. Okay, verse 19. And Lamech took unto him 2 wives. The name of the first was Ada, and the name of the other Zillah. Okay, that's not the kind of creativity I had in mind. But let's go to verse 20. Ada bore Jabal. He was the father of those who dwell in tents, those who have cattle. We got farmers. We got business majors. Sustainability. Let's keep going. His brother's name was Jubal. He was the father of all who handle a harp and organ. We got musicians, music majors. We got fine arts. Zillah bore Tubal-Cain, an instructor of every craftsman in brass and iron. This is early. This is Genesis 4. Now, unfortunately, the fall has just happened, so creativity can be a bit messed up. And Lamech, the first guy to have 2 wives, also comes out with a song to try and impress his wives. Let's check out this song. Okay, I'm going to do this we'll see. Lamech said to his wives, Ada and Zillah, listen to me. Wives of Lamech, hear my words. I have killed a man for wounding me, a young man for injuring me. If Cain is avenged 7 times, then Lamech 77 times. Has a bit of a beat to it, right? I don't kind of like this song. It feels like he's justifying, homicide. So anyway, let's get some more edifying creativity. God is instructing his people how to create a sanctuary in Exodus chapters 25 and following. And it seems like he wants us to imitate his creativity for the purpose of glorifying him. Actually, if you read Exodus 25 and following, which I hadn't read for a while, there's some pretty detailed and intricate instructions. And he wants us to be doing this freely. So the Lord said to Moses, "Tell the Israelites to bring me an offering. You're to receive the offering for me from everyone whose heart prompts us to give." Like the last song we sang about the true heart of worship. And then he says, "Have them make a sanctuary for me, and I will dwell among them." And just look at some of these verses in this passage. We've got artistic design of cherubim. We've got gifted artisans whom I filled with the spirit of wisdom. We've got skillfully woven things, artistically woven, intricately woven, more weaving, right? Also, the word wisdom there relates to Proverbs, which is kind of our book for this year, right? I don't have any actual quotes, but Proverbs is proverbially full of wisdom. No, that wasn't supposed to be a joke, but anyway. The source of human creativity, Exodus 35:35. God has filled them with skill to do all kinds of work as engravers, designers, embroiderers in blue, purple, and scarlet yarn and fine linen, and weavers, all of them skilled workers and designers. Now, I can't do any of those kinds of things, but this craftsmanship is pretty important. Such detailed instructions, God thinks it's pretty important that people take care when they're creating something for him. Another word in my title, complexity, actually comes from a Latin word meaning to weave. So there's weaving is kind of all around these kinds of things. The person who's being creative has to be willing, but they also have to practice. And I'm talking to my fellow musicians, but I'm also talking to everyone. No shortcuts to become skilled in a craft. You may like Cliff Notes and Spark Notes, but really that's a shortcut just to help you get through a quiz that you didn't have time to read for, right? If you want to really know Shakespeare, you have to read the plays, or better still, go see them performed at Gordon College Theatre. If you want to really know calculus, you shouldn't just memorize the formulas, you should be able to kind of derive them, understand where they came from. Complexity. It isn't always a good thing. Sometimes simple is better, sometimes less is more, sometimes a piece of music or a short story can be unnecessarily cluttered. Sometimes my office gets cluttered. There can be a need for pruning and trimming. But actually, when I was putting this talk together, I had the opposite problem. I felt like it was going to be too short. So I thought, I'll do what I tell my students to do when their papers are too short. Just jack up the font size to 13 or 14, triple space the lines, But actually, that doesn't work when you're talking. How do you talk in font size 13? I don't know. But anyway, the other way is more of a danger, I think, when we try to make things too simple, sometimes simplistic. We want cute bumper sticker type things. So we label each other. He's too liberal. She's too charismatic. He's too ethnic. She's too super spiritual. He's too nerdy. She's too vegan. He's too waspy. That would be me. These labels aren't really helpful. They're kind of convenient, but not very helpful. Maybe even the humanities people can be biased against the science people. Think about this. I'm a linguistics professor with my office in Frost. And these science majors from Kosk, what a nerve they have coming over to Frost. I think we should build a wall between Kosk and Frost, make the science majors pay for it. Okay, sorry. I'm letting my emotion trump reason. Anyway, there can be a temptation for us to, as professors, we can feed into this to make you think, you pass my course, you know everything you need to know. It's not the case, right? You pass my course, you're well on the road to kind of learning more about whatever it is. Maybe even when you graduate, you think, I'm done, I know everything I need to know. I'm not against graduation, though. How many of you are graduating in a couple of months? Okay. I'm sorry. What happened? Anyway, I think last semester seniors don't have to come to chapel, right? Oh, well. Mal, do you really have to graduate? I'm going to miss you, and a lot of you. But, you know, it's a step. It's not the end. It's a beginning, right? It's a beginning of learning and continuing to learn. I was going to talk about various majors, but I've got to keep an eye on the clock here. Some of you are studying physics, and wasn't a new particle discovered, the God particle, they call it? Oh, that's kind of fascinating. Chemistry. Mel didn't tell you that when I was a high school student, I caused a small explosion in the chemistry lab. Maybe that's why I gave up chemistry. Bio. You guys are studying hard to learn about cells and life. And how about those cadavers in the basement of Kosk? Did you know about those? Anyway. Mathematics. Hey. New prime number just discovered. It's got 22 million digits. Starts with a 3, ends with a 1, and a lot of other ones in between. Anyway. I love all the things you folks are studying. I wish I could study them all. I just don't have time. Let me jump to fine arts. You folks are studying the masters, but you're also studying to learn how to be creative artistically, right? Remember Tubal Cain in Genesis 4:22? That goes back to that. Music. Remember Jubal in Genesis 4:21? Again, music majors, you're studying the greats of the past, but you're also practicing your craft to be a better singer or an instrumentalist. And many of you are also learning how to be a teacher, how to teach the kids of tomorrow. Yeah, very important. Theater. Think of all the threads that you have to weave together to make a play. And I got my little badge on, the Mad Woman of Shiloh, so I'll be there. Creative writing. Some of you are coming up with poems and short stories and songs and things. Some of you writing journalistic articles. Some of you write for the Tartan. My wonderfully creative colleague, Mark Stevick, many of you know. Tonight, he's presenting one of his own stories at the Moth Radio Hour. He's been working really, really hard on that. Some of you know about that. Education majors. You guys are working really hard to master the complexities of the Massachusetts state's licensing requirements. But more importantly, you're working hard to learn how to understand and teach and love the young, impressionable children who will become the adults of tomorrow. And then my linguistics and language majors. We, in our department, we love working with you as you learn the complexities of grammar, syntax, conversation, and culture, all of which leads to a deeper knowledge of the human person, no cliche intended, how different peoples and cultures interact and think, how we need to be able to understand how other people think if we're ever to work and live with them. Here's something I got from one of my students, Hannah Kapler. Those of you that speak Chinese, you will know exactly what this means. The rest of us, green plum bamboo horse. What the heck is that? But if you know Chinese culture, as I don't, when Chinese kids are remembering back to their childhood, they used to play together and apparently eat green plums and play with bamboo horses together. So this is an expression for nostalgia and past memories of childhood. But we don't know that. We have to really work to understand not just the language, but the cultural background. Some stuff that I make my students read in my senior seminar, I kid them that this will be on the final exam, but these are some writing systems that fascinate us. One of my students in this course is actually creating her own new language and writing system. Maybe she'll be the next Tolkien. Go, Sarah, wherever you are. So all of the disciplines that we're studying have their own complexities and curiosities. I hope that you're enjoying studying them, getting good at them, practicing them, not just trying to sort of get through this thing and, get on to something else. Take pride in what you're doing, whether you're studying complexity or creating things, you're doing it for God. Take a little extra time to choose just the right word just the right note, the right color or texture. If you're debating, take time and care to make sure you're understanding your fellow debaters' actual words and thoughts. If you're in the lab, take a little extra time to redo that experiment if you need to make sure that your measurements are as accurate as possible. How important is accuracy in the sciences? Creativity takes hard work. By the way, I don't want to forget the sports folks. I was at a hockey game last week, and we won 9-4. I gave lots of helpful advice, like, hey, put the puck in the net. I thought they really needed to hear that. So good, I admired, it's not something I can do, but I admired the Gordon hockey team. It seems that our minds and our bodies were created curiously, intricately, complexly, creatively, and that we in turn are given the ability, even the need and desire, even the duty and responsibility, both to celebrate complexity and also in some cases to do our own curiously complex creating and to work really hard at it. I don't know if you've seen the movie Chariots of Fire about the Christian world-famous runner Eric Liddell. There's a line in the movie that says, I believe God made me for a purpose, but he also made me fast. When I run, I feel his pleasure. Apparently he didn't actually say that. They wrote it for the movie, but it's still a good line. Here's my version. When I do my very best, give it everything I have, I feel God's pleasure. Okay, I'm going to go to the piano and do a couple of things here. Here's my first slide. I'm going to ask you how this sounds. Some of you know how it sounds before you even hear it. How's that sound? Pretty nice, right? Okay, how about this one? Okay, there are a few people out there that like that, but I don't hang around with them. Just kidding. Just kidding. What about if I surround it with these notes? Play right moment. How's that sound? So by itself, but with these other notes, so the dissonance was kind of softened by adding these other notes. I call this semi-melancholy. Here's fully melancholy. You hear the difference? Semi-melancholy, fully melancholy. That's just me, though. I mean, that's no rule. Then one more thing here. I pulled apart the notes. In the midst of this chord, you've got this going on. This is the blue, and this the red. They both sound dissonant, right? But when you put them together, something harmonious comes out of it. To me, that's kind of fascinating as a musician. Why does that happen? Maybe this can apply to humans. We have dissonance between humans, but when you surround humans with other humans and more complicated relationships, we can actually bring some harmony out of this. Here's a suggestion. Beautiful harmony can come out of complex relationships between seemingly dissonant elements. Yeah, try and say that 5 times. But anyway, subtlety is another word that fascinates me. The sub in subtlety, even though it's silent, means under. Subtlety means going under the surface, looking for something that's deeper, not the obvious. What's the opposite of subtle is something with super, like superficial. It's so easy and tempting, and I fall into this myself, to be superficial, to not go into the depths, but to skate over the top and kind of ignore the complexities. We don't want to do that. So as well as appreciating the complexity in the subjects that we're studying, the sciences, the arts, the humanities, everything, how about the complexity in each other? We're each very complicated beings. We're not easily labeled. We're not easily understood. Sometimes we can't even understand ourselves. We each have hidden depths. We have intricate histories. We have complicated family lives. We have subtle, we have even fragile personalities. We need, and Bill talked about this in his chapel talk a little while ago, we need friends, real friends, that will appreciate our complexities, that will love us, will appreciate us for who we are, not try to change us, who will listen to us first before attempting to speak and tell us all of the answers that they have for us, okay? So we need to appreciate complexity in ourselves. I'm going to do one more little musical thing. In a few minutes, we're going to sing a song together, and I'm going to play a little bit of it. It's called My Jesus, I Love Thee. It's actually the music composed by A.J. Gordon, founder of Gordon College. Some of you who are A.J. scholars, your scholarship's named after him. I'm going to play it straight, which means as it's written in the hymn book. And then because I'm not such a good music reader, I'm going to play it in a slightly different way. So I'm sure you'll recognize this. That hymn quite well. It's number 346 in the book, by the way. Okay, if I get a little creative with it, I could do something like this. I'm having trouble finding the starting note. Okay, you get the idea? Thanks. That's kind of one of the kinds of creativity I like to do. We each have our own kinds, so that's what I like to do. Did it seem like I was enjoying that? I enjoy being creative. I hope you do too. It would be kind of sad if we're just kind of going through the motions. So just an encouragement to explore your creativity. Okay, we are going to sing a song now. If my musicians would please come up on stage. And I'm very grateful for them for being with me on this. The song is My Jesus, I Love Thee. And what we're going to do is, Miski is going to sing the first verse. That's why you won't see any words. Then the orchestra is going to play the second verse. That's why you still won't see any words. And then you will come in and the ladies will lead you in the last two verses. And then you will see the words. So I actually worked on writing some of this over Easter, and it felt like kind of a worship, creative kind of thing. It felt kind of special. Bill wrote some music for this as well. So let's now join together and sing this song as a worship offering to God.